Let me tell you something about high value women. They don't chase, they attract. They don't prove their worth, they protect it. In a world that constantly tests your self respect, the real power isn't in being liked, it's in being respected. High value women move differently. They know when to speak, when to walk away, and when silence says everything. These 6 rules, they're not just habits, they're boundaries wrapped in grace and confidence shaped by self control. Let's talk about what truly sets them apart. One of the most powerful things a woman can ever learn is how to choose peace over attention. Because the truth is, attention is cheap. It's everywhere. You can get it with a post, a picture, or a few words online. But peace, that's expensive. It takes self-control, maturity, and a deep understanding of who you are to protect it. A high-value woman doesn't chase noise. She creates calm. She's not addicted to being seen. She's grounded in being sure. Sure of herself, sure of her worth, sure of her energy. When you really start valuing peace, your entire world starts to shift. You stop explaining yourself to people who've already made up their minds. You stop chasing closure from conversations that don't deserve your voice. You start realizing that not every situation deserves your reaction. Some just deserve your distance. A high-value woman knows that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. She's learned that not every battle is hers to fight, and not every comment deserves her energy. It's funny how the world teaches women that being noticed equals being valuable. But the women who truly stand out are the ones who don't beg for the spotlight. They're not out here trying to prove that they're enough, they know they are. Their confidence doesn't need a crowd to clap for it. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. Because when your value comes from within, you don't need attention to remind you of it. Choosing peace also means you learn to be okay with being misunderstood. You stop trying to convince everyone to see your side. You understand that peace isn't found in being right, it's found in letting go of what's not worth your time. There's a certain calm that comes when you stop responding to everything that tries to get a reaction out of you. When you stop explaining yourself just to feel heard, and instead, you start trusting that your truth doesn't need validation. A high-value woman protects her energy like it's her most valuable asset because it is. She knows who drains her and who refuels her. She knows when to stay, when to speak, and when to walk away. She understands that every minute spent explaining her worth to the wrong person is a minute stolen from her own peace. So she lets go gracefully. She's not bitter. She's just done. And that's the kind of quiet power that changes everything. See, peace isn't passive. It's not about avoiding hard conversations or pretending everything's fine. It's about making conscious choices, choosing not to engage in arguments that lead nowhere, choosing not to hold on to what hurts, choosing not to let your emotions be controlled by things you can't change. That's emotional strength. And it's rare. When you reach that level of peace, people will notice the difference. They'll sense it in the way you carry yourself, the way you pause before reacting, the way you smile without forcing it. They'll wonder what changed. But the truth is, you just stopped needing the world to understand you and started understanding yourself. A high-value woman doesn't chase validation because she's already validated herself. Her worth isn't built on how many people approve of her. It's built on how deeply she honors herself. She's mastered the art of walking away, not because she's cold, but because she values calm over chaos. She's not interested in being liked by everyone. She's interested in being at peace with herself. And when you live like that, you become untouchable, not in a proud way, but in a peaceful way. Because nothing and no one can shake a woman who's found her calm in a noisy world. That's the kind of peace every high-value woman protects, and it's exactly what makes her unforgettable. You can always tell when a woman has learned to set boundaries. Her energy feels different. She's not cold. She's just clear. She doesn't raise her voice to be understood. She speaks once, with calm confidence, and that's enough. She's not trying to control people, she's controlling her access. And that's where her power lives, not in how loud she is, but in how selective she's become about what and who gets her energy. A lot of people misunderstand boundaries. They think it's about pushing others away or being distant. But real boundaries aren't about rejection, they're about respect. A woman who values herself understands that not everyone deserves the same version of her. Some people get her time, some get her advice, and some only get her silence. Because she's learned that love without limits becomes self-destruction. Setting boundaries means you've finally accepted that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. You stop bending over backwards just to keep peace that was never real to begin with. You stop saying yes when your whole body is screaming no. You stop shrinking yourself just to make others feel comfortable. Because every time you ignore what your soul needs to keep someone else happy, you lose a little bit of yourself. And one day, you look in the mirror and realize you've been saying yes to everyone but you. A high-value woman knows that saying no is a complete sentence. No apology, no guilt, no long explanation. Just no. Said with love, but said firmly. Because her no doesn't come from anger, it comes from alignment. She's not trying to please anyone anymore. She's trying to protect her peace, her time, and her mental space. When you start setting boundaries, people will test them. Some will try to guilt you. Others will act confused, wondering what changed. But what changed is you stopped choosing their comfort over your own well-being. You stopped playing small in spaces that required you to lower your standards just to fit in. And that kind of growth, it makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries. It's not easy. Sometimes you'll feel lonely. Sometimes you'll second guess yourself. But you'll start to notice something powerful, peace, showing up where chaos used to live. You'll start feeling lighter, more focused, more in control of your emotions. That's the reward of boundaries. They don't just keep people out, they keep your energy intact. A high-value woman doesn't set boundaries to punish people. She sets them to protect her capacity to love, to give, and to grow. She knows that healthy boundaries are what allow her to show up fully because she's not pouring from an empty cup anymore. She's giving from overflow, not exhaustion. She's no longer driven by fear of losing people. She's guided by the confidence that the right people will always respect where she draws the line. And let me tell you, the way she carries herself changes. Her tone softens, but her presence strengthens. She stops explaining her decisions because people who value her don't need the explanation, and people who don't value her wouldn't understand it anyway. She's not defensive, she's decisive. She's not hard, she's healed. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They don't block everyone out. They simply decide who gets in and how far. When a woman understands that, she stops feeling guilty for protecting her space. Because peace doesn't come from keeping everyone happy, it comes from keeping herself honest. A high-value woman knows that the love she gives others should never cost her the love she owes herself. You know, one of the quietest but most powerful habits of a high-value woman is that she doesn't compete with others, she evolves. Most people think success comes from comparison, from measuring yourself against someone else's life, someone else's accomplishments. But high-value women understand something deeper. Comparison steals joy and clouds clarity. She doesn't look at what others have and ask why she doesn't. She looks at her own journey and asks how she can become better than she was yesterday. Her competition is her former self, not anyone else. This mindset frees her from unnecessary stress. When everyone else is caught in the trap of envy or judgment, she moves in silence. She invests in herself because she knows the only person she needs to outgrow is the person she was last year. That means she's constantly learning, constantly improving, constantly pushing her own boundaries, but on her own terms. And that growth is magnetic because it's authentic. People can sense it. It's not loud or boastful. It's steady, consistent, and undeniable. A high value woman doesn't waste her energy worrying about who's ahead or behind. She's not in a race that others set for her. She understands that someone else's success does not diminish hers. Their highlight reel is not a threat. It's just a reminder that life is abundant and there's space for everyone to rise. She focuses on building her own foundation because she knows that true fulfillment comes from creating her own life, not stealing someone else's spotlight. This doesn't mean she's indifferent to the achievements of others. On the contrary, she celebrates genuine success, but she does so without letting it affect her self-worth. She understands the difference between inspiration and comparison. Inspiration fuels her, comparison drains her, and she has learned to guard her energy fiercely. She knows that measuring herself against someone else's journey is a trap, one that leads to self-doubt, resentment, and unnecessary anxiety. High-value women also understand timing. She knows that growth isn't linear and that everyone's journey is different. She doesn't panic if someone reaches milestones faster or gets opportunities earlier. She focuses on preparation, on being ready for her moment, on cultivating skills, character, and mindset. She works quietly, consistently, and intentionally, trusting that her own time will come. And when it does, it will come with her full power, her full presence, and her full confidence. Evolving rather than competing also means she doesn't allow the opinions of others to define her. She doesn't compare her behind the scenes to someone else's highlights because she knows that most people only show the world what they want you to see. She measures herself by her own standards, her own growth, and her own values. And that kind of self-assurance, it's magnetic. People respect it because it's rare, and it's rooted in authenticity. She understands that self-improvement is a lifelong commitment. It's not a phase, not a trend, not a way to outshine someone else. It's about becoming the best version of herself in every area, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. She reads, she reflects, she challenges herself, and she embraces discomfort as a teacher. Because growth rarely comes from comfort zones. And in this process, she realizes that life isn't a competition, it's a journey, and the most satisfying victories are the ones that no one else can take from her, the victories of her own evolution. A high-value woman knows that her power isn't found in outdoing anyone else. It's found in continually refining herself, in being relentless with her personal growth, and in rising with grace and consistency every single day. And that is how she becomes unstoppable. One of the most powerful qualities a high-value woman develops is the ability to communicate with emotional intelligence. She doesn't just speak, she observes. She doesn't just react, she responds. In a world full of loud voices and impulsive reactions, her calm and measured presence is disarming. People feel it immediately. There's something magnetic about someone who thinks before they speak, who measures their words not by impulse, but by intention. She understands that communication isn't about winning arguments or proving points. It's about clarity, connection, and respect. A high-value woman knows that the way she communicates reflects her self-respect. She doesn't yell to be heard. She doesn't manipulate to get her way. And she doesn't compromise her integrity to avoid conflict. Instead, she communicates with purpose. Her words are chosen carefully because she knows that every conversation is an opportunity to build or break trust. And she's learned that trust is far more valuable than being right in the moment. Emotional intelligence also means recognizing the difference between energy worth engaging with and energy that's not. She can sense when someone's anger, frustration, or insecurity is not about her, and she doesn't take it personally. She doesn't escalate unnecessary drama. Instead, she listens, she observes, and she decides when a response is necessary and when silence speaks louder. She understands that not every comment requires a comeback, and not every confrontation deserves participation. A high-value woman communicates from a place of self-awareness. She knows her triggers, she knows her boundaries, and she knows how to express her feelings without lashing out or suppressing them. She doesn't let emotions control her words. She lets her values control them. This doesn't mean she avoids emotion altogether. She embraces it, she expresses it, but always in a way that honors herself and others. Her communication becomes a reflection of her inner strength, her self-control, and her emotional maturity. She also understands the power of listening. Most people listen to reply, to correct, or to convince. She listens to understand. And in that listening, she gathers insight, she measures intentions, and she discerns character, because communication isn't only about speaking. It's about hearing what's not said, about feeling what's not expressed, and about knowing when to act and when to hold back. That kind of awareness is rare, and it's what sets her apart. A high-value woman also knows when to step away from conversations that don't serve her. Not every argument is worth having, not every opinion is worth debating, and not every relationship is worth the effort of persuasion. She communicates clearly, but she also knows that the right people will respect her words and her boundaries without the need for endless explanation. This confidence in her communication style comes from self-respect, from understanding that her value isn't defined by how many people agree with her, but by how authentically she expresses herself. Emotional intelligence allows her to navigate conflict gracefully. When someone challenges her, she doesn't react defensively. She pauses, evaluates, and responds from strength, not fear. She communicates with assertiveness, without aggression, with empathy, without surrender, and with clarity, without arrogance. People may not always like her decisions, but they respect the way she delivers them. They respect that she doesn't compromise herself for approval, and they respect that she has the maturity to hold space for her own feelings while considering theirs. Through all of this, a high-value woman's communication becomes her superpower. It allows her to maintain her dignity, protect her energy, and foster relationships that are meaningful and genuine. And in a world where many speak without thinking, she stands out because she speaks with intention, with heart, and with unwavering respect for herself and those around her. Her words aren't just words, they're a reflection of her character, her values, and her inner strength, and that is why people listen when she speaks. A high-value woman understands something that most people never learn. Respect is not optional, and it cannot be negotiated. She knows that love without respect is hollow, and attention without admiration is empty. She doesn't cling to people who diminish her, and she doesn't beg for validation from those who fail to see her worth. The moment respect disappears, she leaves not out of anger, but out of clarity. She walks away because she values herself more than she fears being alone, and she knows that settling for less is never worth the cost of her peace. Too many people confuse loyalty with tolerance of disrespect. They stay situations that erode their self-esteem, thinking that enduring neglect or mistreatment is proof of love. But a high-value woman knows that her time and her energy are sacred. She doesn't waste them trying to make someone see what they refuse to acknowledge. She recognizes that the right people will value her naturally, and the wrong people will expose themselves quickly if given the chance. And when she sees disrespect, she doesn't rationalize it, she doesn't excuse it, she doesn't negotiate with it, she acts decisively. Walking away is not an impulsive reaction. It's a conscious choice, grounded in self-respect. She doesn't need to threaten or manipulate to be taken seriously. She doesn't need to argue endlessly to defend her dignity. Her decision to leave is quiet, firm, and non-negotiable because she has learned that the people who truly matter will respect her boundaries without question. She understands that clinging to someone who treats her poorly only diminishes her sense of self, and she refuses to do that. A high value woman also understands timing. She doesn't rush to leave at the first sign of trouble, but she doesn't procrastinate either. She observes patterns. She watches for consistency, not words. She assesses whether respect is present, not just in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge. And when she realizes that the respect she deserves is absent, she doesn't linger in hope or desperation. She walks away with grace, because she knows that holding on to someone who cannot honor her is a trap that will cost her more than she can afford. She also recognizes that walking away doesn't make her unkind or unloving. On the contrary, it's an act of self-love and integrity. She understands that leaving a situation where she is undervalued allows both parties to seek alignment elsewhere. It's not rejection in its harshest form. It's clarity, honesty, and courage. She doesn't need closure from anyone else to feel whole, because she is already whole within herself. She doesn't fear loneliness, because she knows that being alone is far better than being with someone who diminishes her spirit. A high-value woman knows that boundaries and self-respect are attractive. People are drawn to her because she won't settle, because she won't compromise her values, and because she moves through life with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing her worth. When she walks away from disrespect, she's not punishing anyone. She's demonstrating a standard for how she expects to be treated. And those who matter will rise to meet it, while those who don't will fade away, and that's exactly how it should be. She also understands the lessons in walking away. Each time she removes herself from a situation where respect is absent, she reinforces her self-worth. She teaches herself and the world that her presence is valuable, that her energy is precious, and that she will not be diminished for anyone's comfort. Every step she takes away from disrespect is a step toward freedom, clarity, and a life aligned with her values. The high-value woman does not chase what cannot honor her. She does not compromise her dignity for temporary affection. And when respect disappears, she leaves with certainty, with grace, and with the knowledge that what's meant for her will never require her to settle. Because a woman who knows her worth refuses to accept anything less. One of the defining habits of a high-value woman is that she pours into herself first. She understands something so few people truly grasp. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot show up fully for anyone else if your own mind, heart, and spirit are depleted. That's why she invests in herself, not out of vanity or pride, but out of necessity. She reads, she reflects, she learns, and she grows because she knows that her own development is the foundation for everything else in her life. A high-value woman knows that self-investment is not selfish, it's survival. She treats her energy, her health, her mind, and her emotions as sacred resources. She nourishes her body with care, her mind with knowledge, and her spirit with experiences that expand her. She surrounds herself with people, ideas, and environments that elevate her rather than drain her. Every decision she makes, from the book she reads to the conversations she engages in, is intentional. She doesn't waste time on things that don't contribute to her growth because she values the limited hours she has in this life. This isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. A high-value woman isn't trying to become someone else. She's trying to become her best self. She embraces her strengths, works on her weaknesses, and never stops learning. She understands that self-improvement is a lifelong journey, not a one-time project. Every skill she acquires, every habit she cultivates, every lesson she internalizes is a deposit into her own bank of value. And that deposit grows her confidence, her independence, and her ability to navigate life with grace. Pouring into herself also means she protects her energy fiercely. She doesn't give it away indiscriminately. She doesn't overextend herself to please others or gain approval. She understands that her capacity is finite, and she chooses carefully where and to whom she gives her energy. This discernment makes her magnetic because people sense that she is intentional, not desperate. She is full, and she moves through life from a place of abundance, not need. A high value woman also understands the connection between self care and self worth. She invests in herself because she knows that her happiness and fulfillment are her responsibility, not anyone else's. She doesn't rely on external validation to feel complete. She knows that a relationship, a friendship, or a career opportunity does not define her value. Her value is inherent, rooted in the fact that she consistently honors herself, and that self-honor becomes visible to the world in her actions, her words, and her presence. Investing in herself also allows her to contribute more meaningfully to the people and causes she cares about. She isn't giving from emptiness, she's giving from overflow. Her support is genuine, her love is abundant, and her guidance is grounded in wisdom. People are drawn to her because she is whole on her own, not because she is looking to be completed by someone else. And that is what sets her apart, the ability to enrich the lives of others without sacrificing her own essence. She knows that life is too short to live for anyone else's expectations. She understands that true empowerment comes from creating a life that nurtures her mind, body, and soul. And as she pours into herself, she becomes resilient, radiant, and unstoppable. A high-value woman gives to the world what she first gives to herself, and that is why she shines with unmatched strength and grace.